Hello?
Steph, I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay. Yes, I can hear you now. There we go. Sorry.
Okay. So I'm just going to do an opening and then I will introduce you in just a sec.
Hello?
Thank you. Okay. All right. So, Steph, I can hear you. Today
Okay.
is.
Yes, I can hear you now. There we go. Sorry.
Okay. No. So I'm just going to do an opening and then I will introduce you in just a sec.
Hello?
Thank you. This is not going to work. Guys, sorry for the technical difficulties.
Right,
so, Steph, I can hear you. I'm
okay.
streaming
Yes,
to
I can hear you
Facebook
now. There we
Live,
go. Sorry.
but for some reason there's a backlash. Opening and then I will introduce you in just a second.
Hello?
Thank you. And it normally doesn't do this, so I don't know why this is happening. Okay, I think I got it. All right. So, what a great first week we had in September. Holy cow. I posted that we did $33,000 in the first day, you guys. What a huge way to start your September with the Jack Skellington warmer. We've got some things I just wanted to kind of always, I'm always reminding you to go on your news tab to see what's new, what's popping up with Scentsy. Things are always changing. We've got one thing that you'll see that there's some superstar director training that we're going to be getting. So that's going to help you guys, that I can share that with you. Make sure that you are looking at the back order log. There's a lot of stuff on back order, you guys. So you don't want to be going to parties or talking to a customer and ordering it for them or saying you're going to place the order and it's on back order. So make sure you're touching base with that. I don't want to waste too much time because we have a very special guest on that I've been trying to coordinate for her to be on with us for a long time, and it was all my fault. I kept dropping the ball of setting dates, and I'm so excited because, one, she's my best friend in the world, so that's probably the most exciting thing. We've been friends since we were 10 years old, you guys, so 29 years. Can you believe that? And one of the coolest things about her coming on is that she and our business and her business are totally different, but they're so the same at the same time. I'm going to just read some of the accomplishments that she's achieved in the time that she's been in this company, as well as just in the industry. First of all, her name's Stephanie, and she's going to pop on once I'm done introducing her. I'm just going to read what she sent to me that I asked her to. So it's 12 years in the industry as a healthcare recruiter, 9.5 years with her current company, AMN Healthcare. Prior to that, she was with a competitor for 15 years, so total 15 years of experience in sales. And before that, she was in the mortgage field. So that's there's so many industries that you use the same skills. And there's probably some people on here that, you have a full-time job and you have certain skills that you have and you don't even realize that you can implement them into your Scentsy business. So she's going to be sharing a lot that you're going to probably have a lot of ahas, like, oh my gosh, I do that on a regular basis. So she works with traveling nurses. She basically recruits them, gets contracts with her company to give them different jobs. They bounce around the country, and she's the person that they contact and keeps. She's basically the one that goes to bat for them when things go wrong with their contract or gets them exactly what they want. So she really has to create a really strong relationship over the phone with them. She's a senior recruitment manager, level 2, and there's only 6 of in her company. So she is, there's approximately 200 recruiters, and the title, to give you that, you have to reach at least 90 travelers on assignment consistently, comes with approval rights to approve our margins, which is pay for hours and pay for our nurses increased pay. So she's going to explain that because I don't really understand that, but even though it has nothing to do with our business, to understand what she does, I'm sure you're going to be able to link it how you could communicate and go to bat for your consultants as well as your customers. Here are some awards that she's won just to kind of prove that she knows her stuff. President's Forum recipient from 2012 to 2018, which is our annual sales incentive trip, all exclusive with her spouse. And it's awarded for the top 20% in the company. In 2018, Company Values in Practice Award for Respect was nominated by internal coworkers and her clients. Receive the MOS nominations in the company for this category. An award is being presented at her annual company meeting in October by her CEO and HR director. And this year she is ranked number 2 in production out of 200 recruiters over the last few years. She's been between number 5 and 6. So she is on her game. One thing I'll say that her and I both shared is we both went through a large tragedy in our family. We both lost people at the same time, and we were able to be there for each other. And that's kind of when we really started talking about what we do. Like, we've always been best friends. We always talk, but I was struggling with keeping my business going, and she was having her areas, but she really kept things going, and she was the one that really motivated me to really try to get my mind out of the clouds and or the darkness area, and really kept me going. So we're all going to have trials in our businesses and life, and it's just a perfect example that you know, she's even gotten to a higher level than what she normally is. Even through the last few years, it's been very challenging. Let's see, she currently holds a desk of 100 travelers and that are on assignment, and the company average is for seasoned recruiters is only 40. So that just shows she's like really at the top of her game, and is a recruiter that she does a lot of training for her company as well. Let's see, and consistently have the highest rebook retention at about 70%. So we can really learn about that. Retention is something we really need to be able to keep up with our consultants, and even retaining our customers on a loyalty basis. So, and she's mentored about 10 new recruiters recently. So she has a lot to share. I'm going to go ahead and just break down some main questions that I know you guys are going to want to know from her. And then she'll kind of have an idea of where to go from. And at the end, we'll open it up for questions and you know, Q&A for you. And hopefully you'll be able to get a lot out of this call. So I'm excited for it. So Steph, I'm going to go ahead and unmute you, and then I'm going to mute myself. Okay.
Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you. I'm going to
Okay, good. Hi, everyone.
Oh, wait. I don't know why I'm muting myself when I'm asking questions. I'm not used to asking questions. So hold on 1 second. Where's my question things? Okay. So you work from home basically a good amount of time. I know you go into the office sometimes just to kind of touch base, but a lot of your caseload you do from home. And one thing that I was really curious, because you and I sometimes talk on Marco Polo, and you're like, I'm taking a break, I'm laying out in the sun. And I've always been so fascinated how you really are so disciplined with giving yourself that rejuvenation time. And so what are the biggest tips that you can give as far as creating discipline? And because you don't have somebody looking over your shoulder saying, Stephanie, did you get that done today? You know, who have you talked today? Or who did you contact? How do you create that discipline? Was it hard in the beginning? And was there anything that you discovered that once you figured that out, you were able to kind of get yourself down on a schedule and give yourself time to take a break instead of like working, you know, till you fell asleep, basically?
Yeah, so for me, I am a big like routine and structure person just naturally. So I do set it up like it's I'm going into work. Like I come into my office, I have like set things that I need to do. So we have like critical indicators. So we have certain amount of phone calls that we need to hit. We have a certain amount of travelers we need to get in our pipeline, which then equals to our production and sales. So I know when I hit, like, I have certain things every day that I come in that I need to do. So for example, Like on Monday, I can show you what I do. It's nothing that looks like super fancy or anything. I have a whiteboard.
Okay.
So I put like nothing too overwhelming, but like 3 to 5 things I can accomplish, I know I can accomplish that are going to get me like my sales for the week. So, for example, today I had doing my email blast, touching bases with, so we do, these contracts are 3-month assignments. So, not only am I getting them on a travel contract, I have to get them on the next one. So, there's like a system in place that I have. I have to not only get them to come on board with me, but I have to keep them on board. So I have certain touch points that I need to make with them. So right now, for example, I needed to call my travelers that I haven't talked to in, for me, it was 2 weeks. I just felt like that was a good amount of time. Like, hey, I haven't talked to this person. So I just kind of set myself up with goals like that. Um, it, One thing I've seen happen to some really great salespeople and people who've been successful in my business is burnout. And so I'm really aware of that. Like, that's not, I want to keep enjoying my job and like my job and be excited about it. So that's why I work my 8 to 5, and, I do check emails and things like that on off time, but with 2 small kids and other things going on, I don't want to become resentful to my job. So I am aware of that. I do work my 8 to 5 and, obviously give and take, but I take my lunches almost every day. I'm out on a walk or I go to the gym or just something to kind of get myself remotivated. And then sometimes, working from home, like you do feel guilty. Like I'll tell my husband, like, oh, should I really be like doing laundry? But it takes like 2 seconds, right? Like just to throw some laundry in. But he's like, Steph, if you're in the office, you'd be at a water cooler, like talking to people. Like you deserve a break too. So I have to like remind myself of that. But it's basically like the energy level. Like I can just feel myself go, oh, like start getting like just not as excited about it. So that's kind of why and the how that I do it. But I think it's so important. The other thing I'll tell you, so with my company, there are recruiters that work from home 100%. There are ones like me that I do go in. I feel fortunate I can go into an office once or twice a week just to kind of get that one-on-one time, one-on-one FaceTime with people. But finding connections, it can be very isolating, like especially in a sales environment. You're so focused on the numbers, but I have like a certain group that I kind of have gotten connected with. So we share like tips and, hey, what would you do here? Like, here's a really good email blast I sent out. So just having that connection, because if you lose it, you start feeling kind of like a fish out of water. So that would be like another suggestion. And it sounds like you guys have that with your team, but I've seen people just really did not like what they're doing just because they feel so isolated.
That's a really good point because, and that's why we try to do these, but you'll see how not a lot of people are able to be on live, and so they still sometimes struggle with that same feeling because when you're even listening to a recording, they don't have that same life one-on-one interaction. And so I definitely recommend people to try to somehow connect with their sponsor or some type of upline or sideline and have that one-on-one FaceTime with people that are going and doing the same things that they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Because otherwise, you're right, it could just get so stagnant. And people need humans that we feed off each other's energy. And so if we don't have that energy that we're fed off of and we're just sitting inside of an office all day by ourselves, it can get really draining and very unmotivating. So
Totally.
I'm glad you brought that up, Steph, because that's a very big point. Okay, let me see my notes here. So how do you keep yourself accountable for the things that you do on a daily basis? Like, is there anything you do that I don't know, what type of a strategy do you have to make sure that you're doing those things?
I'm like huge on goal setting. Like so our company sets goals on what we should do and how to get to these certain numbers and, the awards and top 20%. But I do look at things as like micro goals. Like I've even gone into like, hey, if I hit this amount of, we called like our production is called weeks booked, like how many weeks of contracts we book. I'm going to go get a massage on Friday. Like I set little goals like that for myself, like when I'm starting to feel like in a slump, because it helps me. And then do a lot of things like long term. Like I've done the vision boards and stuff like that, but like this year I was like, I wanted a new puppy, and I knew what puppy I wanted, and I knew he wasn't going to be cheap. So I was like, for me, I was in a point, I'm not looking to like grow my business. I just want to maintain and have good business. Like that's where I'm at right now. And so it's a good spot to be in, but I also am like, I can't get too comfortable. And I wanted a hot tub. Like those are the two things I wanted this year. And we just got our hot tub. Like it's on its way in a couple weeks. So like setting stuff up like that, for me, that really helps. And a lot of it too is the other thing, going back to like burnout and all of that, like we take little trips here and there. Like I just try to think of fun stuff. Like this is why we work so hard. It's not just to, just go. For some people it's to buy a brand new car or whatever. For me, it's like I like to do these things that bring fulfillment, enjoyment, and joy to my family. Like little trips that we do, or little, just stuff for the kids and stuff for me. I don't know. I'm a very experienced person. So I do, again, set goals with that, and then kind of give myself little incentives on my own.
Awesome. I love how you said that, because I think a lot of us forget to pay attention to detailed goals as far as like breaking them down. Like we have this big picture of where we want to go, but then it's like, okay, well, where do I start? And so starting with little things like, for us, I would say like, I've seen a lot of people that are doing it as like an actual business that they rely on the income like me. And, it's the income becomes just what you pay your bills with. And there's no like exciting part of that. So we forget to say, oh, I still have the ability to make a goal that I want to, take this extra class that is fun for me, that, I don't know, I want to take singing lessons. And if I want to add that income for the singing lessons, or a hot tub, like you said, that we have that ability, but we have to break it down and say, okay, what do I need to do that? And it's such a simple task, but we all forget to do that, and forget that we even have that ability, that we can actually say, I want to make more money this month, and we can. Because not a lot of companies are like that you can say, I want to make more money this month. They're usually, you go in, you do what you do, and no matter how many hours you put in, you make the same amount of money. So I love that. Okay, so let's see. You and I have, Stephanie and I grew up, I was like the talkative, like person. And she was very shy. When we met, we were like just total opposites, but we attracted to each other because like we fill in the gaps, like where I'm not really strong, she is, and where she's strong, I'm not. And we were talking one day, and one thing she said about what she does is that her sales and relationships that she builds is not because she's this great talker that she's like, sells, ice to Eskimos or anything. It's because she's a great listener. And so, Steph, I would love for you to talk about how listening to your person on the other line, and what type of things are you looking for in order to be able to connect and really make them feel like you really care about them. So do you have anything to share on how you do that? Because I know you're really good at that with your career.
Yeah. And I will tell you, like, sales is like the last thing in the world I would have ever thought I would have gotten into. And especially people that know me from, when I was younger or whatnot, they're like, what do you do? Like, I just wouldn't even think that's something. But what I love about it is things that we talked about with unlimited, you basically have more control. I feel that's my opinion. So with that, as I first started and was, learning this industry and learning sales, I did learn a lot of like sales verbiage. Like there's certain things that I'll say, I'm like, oh, that sounds good. But I was never the person to think about it myself. Like I had to learn that part from other people, and now I implement it. But I think the biggest thing is, and what my clients have come back, and they really truly feel like I understand them and I listen to them. And so like something like a conversation would start off with someone new who just applied with me. Like my first question is, or my first response is not telling them all about how great we are and what we can do for them and why they should pick us as an agency. And by the way, our industry is super competitive. It's really, really competitive. That's why can be so much money in the industry for these nurses that want to do this. So really like before, I kind of think of it like, this is how the best way to describe it. Like when you go to a doctor, a good doctor, they're not going to just prescribe you medicine like, oh, my leg hurts, here you go. No, they're going to sit and like diagnose you and say, um, well, tell me more about that. When did it start? How does it hurt? So when they have these conversations with the traveler or the nurse, the first thing isn't for me just to start telling her what I can do. It's, well, tell me more about that. Tell me more about what you're looking to do. Like, tell me about your current situation. Tell me about what a perfect travel assignment looks like for you. And I do let them do like 90% of the talking in the beginning, so that really, once I have like a good understanding of, first of all, I'm qualifying them if this is even a fit, because it's a lifestyle. It's not, part of it is there are some people this might not be the right thing at the right time. Great, maybe down the road, but I want to make sure I'm spending my time with the right people. So really understanding their goals and motivation. And in my industry, it's usually they want a new experience or they want to make more money. Sometimes, though, if you keep digging and digging and digging, there's more to it. It's not just they want to make more money. They're really lonely and want to go see the world, and maybe, just going through a really difficult time, and this is their chance to kind of get out. So like, that's what's fun for me, is to like really understand what they want, and then what I do is I recap for them like what I think I heard them say, and make sure I'm on the same page with them. And then I talk to them about the next steps and why, some kind of the opportunities that we can offer. Because if we miss that, like if I miss that really important why, I've missed that. I'm going to give them things. They're going to be like, I don't want to go there. Like, why are you, I hang up, call the next recruiter. So that's like the main thing. And then once they really know I'm listening and I want to help them find the right goal, it's not salesy. It's just, she's got it. She's like, and it seems very low pressure, and I can be high pressure if I need to be. If I feel like it's in their best interest, I will be. But usually I come off really low pressure, but really direct, and here's what we're going to do to move forward. And I'm always giving them direction on the next step.
I absolutely love that, because we can totally put that and transfer into our business, because one of the things that most consultants struggle with is they don't want to feel pushy and they don't know really how to start. And there's this verbiage, there's just a saying that we always say is, we don't want to sensey vomit on people. Mm-hmm. And it's because we're so excited about, oh my gosh, it's so great, you'd love it, blah, blah, blah. And like you said it, I love that you said you qualify them, because it's so true. Like, this kind of industry, direct sales, can be for anybody, but it's not necessarily for everybody. And so by taking the time, like you said, to, ask them really what this is about, because, and I loved how you said to dig deeper, because people start because they want some extra money on the side for our type of industry. And we may open up okay, so what is extra income for you? And that may be $100, or extra income may be $600 or $6,000. And so those different brackets are very different as far as what we're going to present to them and say how, if this is for them. Because if they're looking for $6,000 extra income, in the next couple months, it's very likely that's not going to happen. So we have to be able to really, dig deep, ask the right questions of, what are you expecting out of this? What is your picture of what does that look like? I love that you said that. What does that look like to you? Because a lot of people say, extra income is totally different for what you feel is extra income stuff, what I think is extra income. And for us to know that what we think is best is not necessarily what's best for them. So I think that what you just said, it's so crazy. Like, it blows me away how similar to what we do. It really does. So thank you. Let's see. Okay, because you already covered some of them just by chatting. So Let's see. Okay, so yeah, one of them is, when you're talking to a possible recruit, we'll say, or we'll say in our, either a new recruiter, a new customer, whoever it is, when do you get personal with them? Like, do you want to know about if they've got kids and if they've got a family, like, first, or are you just looking for their business why first, or do you do that at the same time? Like, do you have a strategy on that?
It's kind of like, so there's, style flexing is another little tactic that I completely use. So when I'm on, like my husband will hear me talk sometime. He's like, "Who are you?" And I'm like, I just have to, like, if I'm talking to a nurse in Alabama, I can't go at her like I'm talking like as fast as I normally would. It's not gonna, I've got to be aware of like my audience, so to speak. So with that, it really depends on going back to the why. So if I'm talking to um, a really seasoned traveler, has been doing this a long time, he's really gets down to the nitty gritty. I can tell that we're probably not going to get as personal. We're going to get down to, what are you looking for? I'm looking for the highest paying contract. I'll go anywhere. Okay. So I do ask those questions though, because it's important. It's a qualifier for me. Family, because I don't want this nurse to get an offer and then she can't go because she didn't talk to her husband. So those kind of things are important. It's important to have, like, to find connection with people, in terms of, yes, kids, oh, I hear your kid in the background, I have two, I totally understand that, like I'll do things like that. But I am very I'm very like businessy. I just that's just my style. I'm very direct. So it's kind of like a gray area. I can be. I am. I am to. I want to know really how some of these decisions are going to be affected by, like, with what's going on in their personal life. But at the same time, I don't need to know everything. If they want to tell me everything, I have some of them like, okay, like we can do this. I'll just sit and listen to them, and okay. But again, it's kind of just depends on it. It just depends on the person, because some people just in general, like some people are more businessy and not as fluffy, and that's just not how they are. And others just want to talk about everything. And so I really can just kind of fluctuate based off of what I'm sensing from that person.
That's awesome. Have you ever heard of the like the test is like, what is your color or what is your shape? Because like when you're talking to certain people, like they're the, oh, I want to hear all the fluff, and I'll be like, yay, we go on incentive trips, and the person's like, how much am I going to make? That's all I care about. Like that reminds me of
Oh,
that.
I haven't that, but that makes sense.
Yeah, I'll send it to you. It's actually
That's
really fun.
funny.
Yeah. So like that really helped me in the beginning of my career, because I am the fluffy person and I think that everybody wants to know about like all the relationships we're going to build and how much fun we're going to travel together. And then I came across a lady that was like, listen, lady, I don't care about all that. And I was like, and I was so like devastated. Like, I'm like, how do you not like that stuff? And I had to realize, like you said, I had to know my audience. And that was a big lesson for me. So I'm so glad you shared that. And style fluxing, I've never heard that verbiage, but it's so much better. Like I used to tell people that you sometimes kind of have to be like a chameleon. You got to mold into where they're at. Like if they're like loud like me, then it's okay. But if they're quiet like you're used to me, you've been around me for long enough. But in the beginning, I probably scared you a little bit because I was so loud.
Oh, that's funny.
Right? You remember that? So yeah, that really makes a difference, as knowing your crowd and, kind of being able to profile them in a little bit, in a way. So not profile, that's probably a bad way of putting it, but you know what I'm trying to say. I think the
Yeah.
style thing is good to adjust to their level and who they are. Okay, so what are your top tips that you've learned and used to be successful over years that you believe have been essential to being the top in your industry? So I said sales strategy, system strategies such as following up, personal touch, etc. I said basically when your company has you speak about your position to train others, what do you share that are vital areas that you feel are essential to being successful in the sales and relationship building business?
Yeah, I think so. There's two parts of that. So with my company, there's like the client, working with my clients and getting them on board to work with me, and then on the other side, I'm also pretty I don't know if aggressive is the right word, but internally I'm really, really committed to getting like if I tell a traveler I'm going to get her an assignment in Seattle, Washington, I'm very, very like, I'm going to do this, like goal oriented. It's going to happen. Like, I think it's the bigger picture is setting a bigger goal. And like we talked about, this is what I'm going to do and why. I think having a sense of competitiveness for me has really helped, because I don't like to be on the bottom. I like to be on the top. Like, that's where I like to see my name. So that kind of in the long term has helped me. Probably, like, it was right after I had Claire, and she's 6. So what, 7 years ago when I came back, I was in a place where I was doing good, but I wasn't doing great. I was doing, I mean, it's still above average, but not like amazing. And I really wanted to get to this next level promotion. And one of the directors talked with me, and she had me do, and had done it before, but she really dived into the strengths finder. So we looked at my top traits, and what's funny, mine are nothing to do with sales. It's like, restorative is number one. I like to fix problems. And competition, learner, like these things that they're kind of like, oh, this is interesting that you do so well. But what she really brought to light is really focusing on my strengths. So I was kind of like, oh, I'm not as good at like getting a brand new application and selling them really fast. It took me like, more, like we said, relationship building, the trust. So it was more like, what am I good at versus beating myself up on what I'm not good at. So that, I think, is huge, is understanding. It's like things we teach our kids, like, let's bring them up and talk about what they're great at. And, the things are not there's just some things that just, if they're not your strength, focus on what you're good at. And also, when you focus on what you're good at, you're better at what you do. You like your job better. You feel like you gain your confidence. Like, that was a huge change for me when I kind of took out the negative and put it into what am I good at? What should I be focusing? In terms of like some like nuts and bolts, like follow up and things like that. I think with me, like, it's inevitable. And if I make the calls I'm supposed to be making, the follow up is happening. Like, I'm calling the clients in my database. So we have like a certain number that they suggest. It's not a requirement, but it's something I hit every week because I know I need to. And if someone says they're not interested, I'm still going to call them back. Like, I may not call them back tomorrow, but I'll call them back a few months from now. I'm always really nice about it. No problem. Let me know if you have anyone that you looking to go. Just let me know. And then I can't tell you how many times I pick up. They call me back 2 weeks later. I changed my mind. Like, I'm ready to do it. Wow. So a lot of it is just keeping up with like what I'm supposed to be doing. Like, our company set up, our model is set up for success if you follow what they're suggesting, basically.
Yeah, like a specific step point strategy. Mm-hmm. We in our business, we talk about the more no's you get, the closer you are to a yes. And so we don't really have like a specific number, but we always talk about go for 100 no's, and that means at least calling 100 people in a month. And eventually, so that really makes a lot of sense. And then focusing on the strengths, I'm so glad you brought that up, because I can't tell you how much I see people, the first thing they do is say, like, I'm not a salesperson. I don't know anybody. I'm not really good with people. And like, so they're focusing on all the things they're not good at. And we have to bring them back into, so what are you good at? Oh, I'm a good friend. Well, okay, what makes you a good friend? What do you think? And so I feel bad that so many people really focus on negative instead of positive. And I'm glad you said that, because that's really the only way we can move forward, is to start with what we are confident with and build from that. Mm-hmm. And then, like, I love how you said in the beginning of the call that there are things that you weren't good at, but you learned those skills. Like, just because you didn't walk in the door to your company having the skill, you were willing to learn it. And a lot of people assume that good, successful people like you just were born like that. and it's most likely it's not. It's a skill that you are able to learn, but the most part is that you're willing to put the work in to learn it, even if it was a little uncomfortable in the beginning.
People say that all the time to me. They're like, well, yeah, you can do that, because I'm like, I've been doing this a long time, like brand new people. I'm like, and you've got to find, I think you and I talked a little bit about like my first mentor, who was so opposite of my personality, like night and day, but I learned so much from her. She was awesome. But she told me the first week she was working with me is do not copy what I say. Like, this isn't going to work. My style will not work for you. I will teach you the tools, but you will have to find people that have fit your personality, so it's going to come off more genuine. Because if I would have copied what she said exactly, I would have sounded like that used car salesman. So that was huge. So now when I train people, sometimes you have personalities. You're like, yeah, well, I can see we're kind of similar. But if we're not, I tell them up front so they don't feel bad, like that they're not mimicking my style. I'm like, you have to come into your own, and that can happen quickly, or it can take some time. I think it just depends on who you have around you, and also what you're willing to kind of learn and grow from where you're at.
Absolutely. And it's definitely what you're willing to do. And it does take time. That's so true. I told you last night how one of our core values from Sensi is authenticity, and that I have a lot of people start Sensi and they call me and they go, so where's the script? And I'm like, what script? They're like, well, because they've been in direct sales before, and this is the only direct sales company I've ever been with, so I don't know that. And they're like, yeah, the last one I was with gives me a whole script of what to say. And I'm like, well, I think it's because we don't have that, because we want you to be you. And we want you to, not feel like you're, a robot trying to do everything that I do the same way, because that's exactly what happens. People know you're reading from a script, and they know that you're it's all about the sale, and it's not really about them. So, no, that's awesome. It's seriously, as much as we talk, I still get blown away how much what we do on a regular basis is the same. Okay, so I already did that one. What do you think the biggest thing about loyalty is, as far as what do you think that everybody that's trying to create loyal clients or customers or whatever, that in your experience, since you've been doing it for over 15 years, what do you think that is the most important thing that everybody has to learn? Like, if you're teaching a group of your recruiters, what is something that isn't something that people tend to know? Is there any type of thing that you've found? I know this is kind of all over the place, but is there any specific thing that you see across the board that the successful people are doing this specific task to create that loyalty? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think a lot of it, so there's a couple of things. I think a lot of it goes back to knowing their why behind it. So once you have that and you understand it, it's harder for them to compare apples with apples on pay and things like that, because you've created value to them. So I always look at, how do I just not be this person that's texting them about a position? How do I maybe open them up to an opportunity that someone else couldn't do or wasn't willing to do, to show them hey, here's some other really great options. It's like, when you go to Nordstrom and you try on a pair of shoes, there's a reason they bring you out 3 or 4 pairs of shoes, and you're treated with white glove service. It's kind of fun. You may not buy them all, but sometimes you do, So things like that. I mean, for me, I've read reviews like what my travelers have said about me. Again, I'm not the best, hey, yes, I can get you anything you want. And I'm really transparent. I educate them. I take a lot of time to educate how it works, so that they go back to trust and respect. That's huge. Sometimes when difficult things happen, or difficult conversations, or the company makes a mistake, which happens, of course, I'm the first person they call. So getting on the same page with them with, how are we going to fix this? We're in this together. I team up with them. I don't go well, you did this, even if it's their fault. I use a lot of verbiage, how are we going to do this? Here's what I think we should do, using those kind of things. So I think it comes down to it's the trust and respect, and feeling comfortable and taking care of it. There's an issue. I might not be able to make it perfect, but I take a lot off their plate. It stresses me out. Sometimes I don't sleep at night thinking, oh gosh, what am I supposed to do for that person? But at the end, that's why. And then also, once you kind of gain that database, I have a pretty good book of business. What's kind of felt good too is, obviously we value our clients and we want to retain everyone, but there is statistically a portion that will not be loyal. It's just how it is. It's how people are. They don't value it. And so to kind of take some of those people for who they are, and we've talked a lot about how it's it's so refreshing to not feel like you're taking everything personally, because that's really, really hard in sales. It's like, well, they just yelled at me and they don't want this, and it really has nothing to do with us. Um, well, it can, but a lot of times if you've done everything you can do to the best you can do, and you've leaned on your leader, your mentor for advice, I mean, at the end of the day, sometimes there's going to be that 20%. Like my rebooks to my loyal travelers is 70%, and that's one of the top in the company. So that just shows you with me, like I like to look at the numbers. So I'm talking to this person, I'm like, all right, well, these people are all good. I've got one person that they're fine, but they may not stay with me. Like recognizing that's part of it, how it is, so that it doesn't bum me out, if that makes sense.
Yes, and Steph and I kind of went over a lot of the stuff we were going to talk about, but I think it's important that I share the things that we discussed, because it really is relevant to our business. Is that one, we have to grow a big heart, but even a thicker skin, because sometimes the people, like our consultants and our downline or our customers, they kind of take out things on us when it has nothing to do with us. And there has to be a point in your business that you're able to take yourself out of it and say, is this an opinion or a fact? And also, does this really have anything to do with me? Or are they literally just venting on me? And there was a point in my business that, everything got to me, and I would crawl in my bed crying, and, I just didn't know how I was going to handle things. And then there was a point that I really realized that I went to a different phase in my business, and I really was able to pick out, what was personally to me. And I remember people thinking in the beginning, because I changed so much, and they were with me in the beginning of my business, and then they stuck around and they saw a difference in me, and they thought, like, the automatic thought was I didn't care as much. And that wasn't it it's just at all. It was just, I wasn't letting it affect me the way I did before. And so, and then it really has to do with the other person. Like, if they really want to know how you feel, they'll ask you. Like, okay, one of the girls called me out on it. She's like, well, Jess, you don't seem like you care as much. And I'm like, no, that's not it at all. But this isn't something that really has anything to do with me. So there's really nothing I can do for you. As a friend, I can, give you my advice of, what I think, but that's really has nothing to do with me. And she was blown away by that night and day transition. And it really helped her kind of pinpoint, going like, well, wow, I want people to affect me that way anymore. And I want to be like you, like, to be able to let water roll off a duck's back like you just did, And that's when you're growing people, and they're actually, when people grow, that's your business only grows as much as you do. So if you continue to get, knocked down, and you want to crawl in bed and put the covers over your head over every customer that's upset, or, team member that quits or whatever, and you take it personally, like Stephanie says, you're going to get worn out. You're going to burn yourself out. You're not going to have the joy that you can truly have in this business. I love how you said educate, because I think a lot of us forget that our company is a party planning business, and everybody's always trying to do everything they can to not do a party. And what we have to show people the products, they have to try them, they have to, experience them. And that's how we educate. And so if you're not getting customers that are really, locking in and falling in love with these products, it's because they're not educated on the product enough. And so I really want you guys to think about that. Rethink about why you should be doing parties, like in-person parties. Steph, talk to me more about referrals, because I know you said your business really changed when you really started tapping into the referral concept.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was funny. It actually all like, and again, when we talked about this last night, I'm like, I need to be asking for them even more, because now that I work, I've been working from home remotely pretty consistently for about 3 or 4 years. So my husband will hear me sometimes once in a while when he's home early or whatever. And he's like, it's crazy. Like, with the amount of like loyal travelers you have, I never hear you ask for referrals. Like, this is my husband, who's like anti-sales. Like, he would never do a sales job. He would die if he ever had to do what I do. But I'm like, yes, this is awkward though. Like, I don't know, like, I don't want to sound like, hey, who do you have for me? You know? He's like, well, think of it this way. Like, our realtor, who was amazing, we loved him. He found us this house. We got the offer. Like, is awesome. He's like, he calls me every 3 months, knowing that we're probably perfectly fine. He asked me for referrals. He's like, and I'm on the search trying to find him someone to refer constantly. Like, if I hear anyone talking about they want to buy a house, I'm like, call Mel. He's awesome. Call Mel. So he's like, so I was like, oh, that's interesting. Like that's a different way to look at it. So I did get way more proactive on like, hey, who do you have for me? I'd love to help any of your friends out. And what I found is like actually like they're branding for me, my name for me. So by the time they apply to me, that whole part of like this initial like, oh, like tell me about your company, I'm selling the company or selling why they should work with me, that part I can get a gauge if they're really on board for me. And there's something psychological about hearing, well, this person's so great. You go into it thinking this person's so great. Like they have no reason to not, unless it's sometimes like they'll read reviews about our company, which everything's online, and you know how reviews are, they're never usually great. So that's like my biggest hurdle. But in general, I mean, I've really like every time I get in a slump, I'm like, I need to call everyone and just ask for referrals. And I've even had the other thing that's been alarming, and I'm like, oh, this is really bad. Someone's asking me this. They've asked me, well, do you have time to work with more travelers? Because I have people that would be interested. I'm like, oh, yes. Okay, yeah. So I'm like thinking they probably think I don't want any more. That's why I'm not asking. So it's just different ways of thinking about it and getting people to do the work for you. And I mean, you get referrals by doing a good job for them. That goes back to the loyalty and the trust and all of that good stuff. So yes, I think we have to ask for them, as uncomfortable as it can feel, but it's totally normal. Like it's completely normal. I think about anyone that sells me anything, I'm like, they always ask me for a referral or how did you hear about us? And I don't know why we get in our own heads it's uncomfortable, but I think everyone feels like that.
Yeah, I love how you said it kind of takes out the first steps of like just getting to know people and the trust and all that. That's already done. Because
Hmm.
when somebody refers, they already don't have to worry about like, are they going to take care of me or not? Am I going to, if they, like with us, we take people's money and things like that. So it's like, they don't have to worry, oh gosh, can I give them a check? Can I give them my credit card? Are they going to take off with my money? Like they're already working with somebody that they know is working with us. And that was a big aha moment for me that honestly, referrals were so huge in the beginning of my business. And I'm like, oh, Steph, you just made me realize where I'm lacking right now. And that is such a huge place. Like when people are struggling for sales, or we like to try to goal to bring somebody new on to the company, at least 1 to 2 people a month. And when that's not happening, the first thing we should be doing is I need to be asking for referrals, because I honestly, I always say that a referral is the best compliment you can get in your business, because
Hmm.
you are taking care of them. They trust you. They feel like you're going to take care of their person. Just like we don't technically go to our favorite restaurant and we don't recommend it if the
Hmm.
the waiter's bad, they it's dirty, it's you're not going to go, oh my gosh, it was great food, even, but and but they're going to be taken care of horribly or whatever. We recommend when we're satisfied, and
Hmm.
that's when people go, oh wow, it was a great restaurant, well then I need to go there too. It's the same thing with our with you, with your nurses that are traveling, the same thing for us that are wanting to buy or host or join with us. And gosh, you just said something. I'm just like, my mind's always like, oh my gosh, you're saying such good stuff. There was something that about referrals. Oh, um, you said something earlier about your follow up, and this has to do with, I guess, referrals too. Is that we always say that when somebody says no, it's no for now. Unless they literally say, don't call me again, I'm
Hmm.
not interested, take me off your list type thing, which I think I've had literally, I can count on my hands in 8.5 years, somebody tell me that. And so I love how you said that, this guy will call you 3 months or like 2 weeks later, you're still going to call them. And then it's very likely that they even call you earlier than when you are going to follow up.
Hmm.
But I think that just shows consistency on your end, and you're also building that professional reliability that they don't even know that they need from you. But when they see like, wow, she says she's going to follow up and she does it, like, wow, I can really rely
Mhm.
on this lady. And they start to think about possibilities that maybe they didn't have before, because
Mhm.
it's just not something that they ever really, entertained until you kept putting it in their mind. And we call it planting seeds. And, by you following up, you're literally watering that plant. Hi, Eric.
Can you close the door? He's like, his eyes got all big. He's like, I don't have to be a part of this, do I?
He's like, why does he know my name? Does he know that we're doing this today?
He does. He probably forgot.
Okay, so let me see. I think I want to open this up for Q&A, but I just want to make sure I answered the question. I mean, I asked all my like hot questions that I really don't want to make sure that you touched base on. I said, what skills do you think you must develop, and why people choose certain people to do business with them? How do you build trust? Oh, you've already talked about that. Okay, so building trust and respect by that loyalty. Okay, so now's the time. If you have any questions for Steph, maybe make sure that when you ask, clarify, maybe tell her why you're asking, like in your own Scentsy world, and then she'll probably be able to understand what the question is. If you think she's not following, she'll tell you if she needs more feedback or more questions. So just go ahead and unmute yourself, or raise your hand first, and I'll just I'll unmute you so we don't have everybody possibly unmuting at the same time. Okay, Melissa Henning, I'm unmuting you. Let's see. Okay, go. Yeah, there we go. You're unmuted.
So first of all, I just want to say thank you for coming on to talk to us. I don't really have questions, but I just have to say how blown away that I am, like, and how excited I am to hear that there's like an actual profession out there that does like the recruiting end of this. People are always telling me, it just gives me hope. And it's very discouraging when people are like, oh, what you do isn't real. It really is,
Mhm.
and so to see that you do that, and it just makes me so happy. So thank you.
Oh, great. That's awesome.
It is true, Steph. Like, so many people, I've been doing this for how long? My mom still doesn't think this is like a real thing. She still doesn't real get it. So a lot of people just don't think like, oh my gosh, you can actually make money with that. Like, yeah, it's a real.
So I'm
funny.
glad that I have like an
Aw.
actual, I can say nurse recruiters do what we do.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That was the craziest thing with Jess and I in our conversations. Like we started talking really deep. I'm like, we pretty much do like the same thing, just different, but the same. So it's just funny. It's just, and then even in like your personal life, I think about it with my kids. I'm like, how do I get them to do what I want them to do? I need to talk to them about, why do you think this way? Like even in our personal lives, we can apply these things too. But yeah, definitely connection.
And one thing that we hear a lot, when people are thinking about doing the business side, is the first rebuttal is always that, oh, I'm too shy. And that was actually what I said. Steph probably won't believe this, because I'm very outgoing with people that I'm comfortable with. So Stephanie's like my comfort zone. So she's always known the like side of me. But people that I don't know, I always it takes me a while to open up. So I didn't think about that stuff. Like, maybe that's another reason why we connected, because there was a shy side of me that, like, until I got to know you, and then I just think we got to know each other so fast that I opened up myself very fast. But getting back to what I was saying is that most people think they won't be successful because they're more shy and reserved and more of an introvert. And like you even said, you would have never pegged to be in this kind of career. I would have never pegged you to be in this kind of career myself. And you're so good at it. Like, it's so amazing. I've learned so much.
Thank you.
Oh, yes. Is there anybody else that wants to comment, or, okay, let me unmute you. There we go.
And the other thing that I wanted to say, which I loved, was because I hear a lot like, oh, I can't do that because I'm not good at sales. And I love how you had said, like, basically to redirect. Well, what are you good at? And making all of their good points, like have it sell them, like they can sell themselves because they know that they're good at, like, talking to people or whatever. They don't have to focus on the things that they're not good at. And I just loved that you said that. I was like, that was an aha moment for me.
Yay.
So
Cool. You're welcome.
Anybody else, comments or questions? Oh, I see a hand risen. Melissa Zaganaro. Let's see. There we go.
Am I good?
Yes.
All right. Well, first of all, like Melissa said, thanks so much for coming on. And it's crazy to hear that like there's so many similarities between what we do and what other companies out there do that don't have anything to do really with like direct sales.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing I wanted to ask, and I love how you said you ask when you're talking to people, you ask, well, what does that look like to you? But can you talk a little bit about how you would, if you needed to adjust somebody's thinking about like the way they look, what they're looking at, like this is what it looks like to me. It's just not plausible for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I asked it, I had somebody who had signed on, and when I was talking to her about it, she's like, well, we're going to have a $3,000 party, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do this. And when that didn't happen, it automatically went to, well, this isn't going to work. And I didn't quite know how to say, well, it's not that it's not going to work. It's just that what your success looks like is great, but it doesn't happen that way normally.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I would probably like, so the best thing how I can relate to this is when I get like a nurse on the phone who hears they're going to make $100 an hour doing this, and that's not what it pays. So they have unrealistic expectations. Is that what you're
Yeah.
yeah. So I'd first of all kind of like hear them out. Oh yeah, that would be awesome. That'd be great. Well, and I would probably backtrack on like the education piece. For me, it gets a little, I'm trying to figure out how to translate. Maybe Jessica can help with your guys' business, but I would get back to basically what the market pays in this position, and here's all the other benefits. How does that sound to you? And then kind of hear their hesitation out. And so sometimes I feel like we're afraid to ask for, like, we don't want to hear the hesitation, but in the long run, it saves us time, right? Or we can come back to it. And it may go back to qualifying that person if it's the right fit at the right time. So I think maybe like, empathizing, getting on the same page, educating, this is how and why it would work. How does that sound to you? And sometimes the best thing we can do is like, just be quiet and let them talk. Like whether it's bad or good, just hear what they want to say versus assume, because maybe she would say, oh, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, yeah, I can go with that. Or no, I don't have time. And then you can either kind of move on to the next person or talk about what would work for her, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, and I like what you said about how does that sound to you, because that's something that it didn't occur to me that would be something that to ask when we're trying to adjust the way somebody's view of what they can do. So yeah, so no, I like that a lot.
Great.
Thank you.
Sure.
I think you answered it pretty well, even though to translate into our world, but it's very true that a lot of people have unrealistic visions of. I have people telling me like, they'll say I want to make $3,000 a month, and I'm like, that's possible, but it's going to take time to build. That actually brings me to a question that I have this being streamed live in my group page, and somebody asked, how long did it take to build your clientele stuff, like I guess maybe translate into your world. How long did it take you to get like a regular following of nurses that were constantly signing with you? Yes.
It took a while. I mean, I would say, with the current company I'm at, because when you start over, you have to like redo your database and all of that stuff. So when I start over the new company, you pretty much start over, even though you have the skills. I mean, probably a good like 3 or 4 years. And even I mean, this last year, I've still grown, but I'm kind of like now stable and I'm good. But it took a long time, and all those calls I made in the beginning, they paid off. Like it pays off. It's like I always tell people when I start training them, work hard now. Like now is the time to do it, because it will make it between the referrals and just naturally how things fall into place. But it definitely takes time, and it's an investment. I mean, I think any sales position is an investment. There's great reward and flexibility and all these other great things, but it's something that's not going to happen overnight by any means.
That's so true. And even in our industry, like I have people that have known me for years and known what I've done, but never wanted to buy, host, or join. But just by the consistency on my end of just maybe not connecting with them directly, but keeping as far as the business, but staying in contact on a personal level, you guys, and just making them aware that you're still around, because direct sales is very, I guess the word is transient, like people are coming and going constantly. And basically to build a clientele and like to build, I guess they call it like a funnel of people that are coming your way as far as new consultants and people that are willing to host with you and then also simply buy from you, is you have to stay in business. You can't be, and that's one of the biggest things is people stick around for maybe a few months or even a year and think that they should have this big, huge organization with thousands of customers and hundreds of people in their downline. But it takes a while, you have to decide, are you in this for the long run? And the people that are, get that. And the people that aren't, I can't tell you how many people come to me as, they lost their customers. So I now have customers. I have people that used to like to host with their consultant and they stopped. So then I become their consultant to host with. And then also I have people that, have always thought about joining, but just never really did. And so they see my consistency. And so when they think of actually joining, they join with me. So definitely consistency is so important and sticking around, because, like Steph said, when you start another business, you have to start all over again. It's the same thing. I would encourage, if anybody that's more of like a hobbyist on the call or recorded, thinking about that, even if you're just a hobbyist now, just to be able to maintain even the small amount of customers that you do have is so important, because if your life changes sporadically, randomly one day, and you need that extra real leg of income, you already start from a base of clients and people that already, you could start with. Because if you let yourself cancel and then you have to restart again, you're really starting to lose that credibility with your people. Like, oh, I don't sell anymore. Oh, guess what? I'm a consultant again. I mean, not to take away that, things do happen and you have to, maybe Sensi's the first thing that goes, which is fine. And that's why they let you come back for free. But you just don't want to make that like a tool of like, oh, I don't feel like working my business or, calling people today, so I'm just gonna let my account cancel. And then when I feel like it again, because your customers are gonna be like, I can't rely on this person. I wanted to, buy some stuff for Christmas, or I wanted to host a party so I can get all my Christmas stuff for free. And she wasn't in business, or he wasn't in business at the time. Or man, I really wanted to earn some extra Christmas money and she wasn't in business, and maybe you're the only person they know. And so they think it's not an option anymore. So hopefully that helps you guys kind of think about that, as far as consistency. Okay. Any more? Thank you, Steph. You've already been over an hour.
Sure. Yeah, no problem.
Any last comments? Just raise your hand. I'm going to go through all the people that are on live. Or questions. I'm looking at the feed. I don't see any. Let's see. Oh wait, there's nope. I think all the questions got answered when you were talking. So I see all the questions. So thank you so much, Steph.
You're welcome.
I learned so much, and you really just a lot of things you touched on was definitely great reminders, but you're really motivated. Like, you really helped me. You inspired me to not be motivated. So I appreciate you, friend.
Sure. No problem.
And I will send everybody the link to this recording, including you, Steph. And I hope you guys are on the Super Saturday call this weekend. And we will see you guys next Monday, same time.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye. Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye. I'm going to turn this off.